What's going on, Packers fans? Welcome into our Pack-A-Day members only Q&A. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for being members. Gonna have a really special chat for you guys today. Always appreciate you being here. Super excited to talk Packers as always, and we'll get to as many questions as we can over the course of the next hour or so. I saw earlier today, I came in and I saw we had some questions coming in early as 10:30 this morning. So we'll kick things off right away here. We may have a surprise or two through the course of today's show as well. But let's kick things off with Packers HQ. It says, possibly a stupid question from someone who doesn't know X's and O's deeply, but has played a lot of Madden. When you or another journalist passively says cover two, are you referring to Tampa 2 with all zone, including underneath, or cover 2 man with only deep safeties and all man underneath? Pretty sure Tampa 2 zone is the answer if it isn't specified, but I'm never quite sure what I hear or when I hear it. So the true story is that if you hear cover 2, that just means that there are 2 safeties deep over the top. It could theoretically mean that you are playing zone underneath. It could mean that you are playing man underneath. It could mean that you are playing some mixture of zone and man underneath. You can do a variety of stuff with it. Usually it's not the latter one, but it can be theoretically either of those. My default is sort of with where you are at, Packers HQ, where if I hear like, oh, they're playing a true cover 2, I sort of default to a zone Tampa 2 defense. But you have to kind of use some context clues. You have to, know what team they're talking about, what the situation was. And sometimes you just need to use your eyes out on the field too, to know exactly what they're talking about in that situation. So I genuinely, if I hear a cover 2 defense, I default to that Tony Dungy Tampa 2 style defense. But theoretically, cover 2 means you've got 2 safeties over the top, and what you're playing underneath it can vary depending on if you are in zone or man. But it's a very good question. It's not a dumb question at all. And again, it just kind of depends on the situation scenario. And sometimes you have to just read between the lines and kind of glean exactly what they're talking about in that given instance. All right. As annoying as the Jaire saga has been, I respect the precedent Gute has set overall with players, agents. We will pay you if deserved, but if we don't see eye to eye in the future, we will not blink. I think in general, the way that Gute handles these situations has been pretty good in the entire scheme of things. I think the most important thing to understand and recognize here is that there is no perfect playbook when it comes to these sort of situations. It's always going to be just a little bit different. It's always going to be dependent upon the situation and scenario, and everyone's going to be a little bit different depending on the player at hand, what the situation is with that player, how much you've played them, how they've played for you. They're all just a degree of different. And I think overall, Gute, over the scheme of things, has done a really great job of that. I think he deserves credit. What happens in this entire Jaire saga and situation will remain to be seen, and he'll be judged on that based on kind of what happens. It's, in a way, we've talked about it, it's a win-lose. It could be a win-lose either way, meaning if you keep him and he plays great, it's a win, but you don't know that that's going to be the case ahead of time. If you keep him and he doesn't play or plays terrible, it's going to be a massive L. If you cut him and he goes and plays for another team and tears it up and gets a first team all pro, it's going to be an L. If you cut him or trade him and he plays 3 games and gets hurt again, it's going to look like a major win. And you just don't know without the benefit of hindsight what direction that's going to go in. So flip a coin, good luck. Hopefully he makes the right decision, but part of the ultimate judgment will be determined on whether or not that was the right decision or not. I mentioned there might be a surprise or two. We have no official Justis episode this week, but the one and only Justis Mosqueda was more than kind enough to join us for our members only Q&A this week. Justis, great to be chatting with you, my friend. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, man. It's like 80 degrees, so I'm pretty happy about the whole situation.
I'm jealous. It's warm enough to have the window open here. I think we're in the low 60s, but it's not terrible out. And we're supposed to get some 80s later this week, so I will more than take it. More than anything, I'm excited that I'll be at a Packers practice tomorrow, which is has me very, very excited. And Justis, I promise you I'll do my best to get you as much. Is there any, if I could get you one piece of information tomorrow at Packers practice, what do you want?
I mean, people want the head count, right? That's got to be the most important thing. I mean, I'm sure it's going to be the first thing all you guys tweet, but yeah, head count is the. I mean, they don't even have pads on yet, right? They just barely can get the football. Like
correct.
OTA 1, right? Phase 1, you can't touch a ball. Phase 2, you can touch a ball. So that's.
I think we're in phase 2
football.
I think
right,
you can
exactly.
Yes. Yeah. So
I think we're just getting to conditioning with a football. Like in high school sports, you'd still call this conditioning, right? So I'm not. I'm not too worried about anything right now.
In years past, you would get a lot of individual drills, and then you would get some team drills that are about at 50 to 60, maybe 70% speed, but without obviously any, no pads. And, again, take it for what it's worth in that situation. If you're basing anything off of one play in OTAs, you're probably going a little bit too far on things, but you usually get at least some team drills, more importantly, of like who's lined up in what position, who's at left tackle, who's at right guard. You get a little bit of that stuff. So I'm hoping for at least that tomorrow, but it could just be a lot of individual work too. We'll see.
Right. And it's going to be what? It's going to be 2 days?
Well, today was the first day, but media was not open or was not allowed access to it. Tomorrow is the second day, and then it is media access. And then I believe Friday is the third day this week, no media access. And then there's another 3 days next week, Tuesday being the only day that media has access to. And then the final week is mandatory mini camp, where it will likely be 1 day open to the media again, the second day closed, and then the third, maybe both will be open. We'll see. And then the third and final day, they do the big charade of like, yep, we're going to have a practice. And it's always a team building activity. And they usually tell us
bowling.
We're going
Just
bowling.
Kidding. Yep.
Exactly. So paintballing, bowling, there's only so many opportunities of things to do in Green Bay. So they're a little bit limited in their ultimate opportunities to do things. So we'll see what they decide on this year.
Yeah.
Roller derby. We'll see.
Highly doubt they want the big boys on the skates.
Oh no, for sure. No, 1,000,000%, zero chance, 0% chance whatsoever. All right. We've got a lot of different questions here. Some of these are obviously going to be a little bit me dependent. So my apologies in advance, but we'll get through those quick and then we'll get to ones that obviously you can go through as well. Ben just asked really quick. I was wondering if your grades are all dependent on the quality of the opposition, i.e. do you grade higher as an O lineman if you do well against an all pro D lineman? I do not. And the reason being is that where do you sort of come out on it of like, then I have to be the arbiter of who is good, who is bad. If somebody's like, I could think so-and-so is having an all pro season, but then what if they don't? Or what if you look back at it and be like, oh, actually they were terrible. So no, you just have to guard or go against the player that's across from you. I do not change or alter the grades depending on the opponent. You just have to, whether you're playing against, Hall of Fame Joe Thomas, or if you're going up against Byron Bell, you're going to get the same opportunity one way or the other to earn the grade. So you just have to beat the guy across from you, and that's ultimately what the grade is responsible for. All right, Justis, I'll let you start with this one. What do you think are reasonable expectations for Golden and Savion Williams?
I think Golden's going to be in that 3-man rotation early on, and then
Agreed.
Williams as a rookie, he might be able to compete for a kick return job or something like that. But, if they're serious about letting Keyshawn stay as the kick returner, it's going to be hard to unseat a 2-time first team all pro, right? So at least if we're just talking about this year, like Williams, he might finish the year with like 250 yards. I wouldn't be shocked by that. Golden, I expect him to be in that 3-man rotation with Wicks, Dobbs, and who am I supposed Reed? So
Reed,
yeah.
I think for Williams, a lot might depend on who gets that number 6 wide receiver position. For instance, if it's McCole Hardman and Hardman's the punt returner, I think you could legitimately have days where Savion Williams is inactive on game days because you've got Golden, Reed, Wicks, Dobbs, and then Hardman is your 5 because you want him as your primary punt returner, and you're probably not activating 6 wide receivers, and Savion Williams is probably the odd man out in that situation. If they don't keep a 6th, or if it is Savion Williams versus Malik Heath, for instance, then you might have the opportunity for Williams to earn that job and maybe get some snaps or a couple gadget plays here or there. So I think a lot of it is dependent on who's that number 6 and just injury situations. And then when Christian Watson comes back too, because regardless of who the 6th is, if Watson comes back, now Savion Williams is basically the 6th, regardless if you're all healthy. So I'm with you. I think I would temper expectations for Williams. And I think there's a decent chance, depending on who they keep, he could be inactive to begin the season for a bit.
Yeah. And I guess this is another point. Like the Packers have really struggled at punt return, which is why they brought in a guy like Mecole Hardman. I don't think Savion Williams is going to be a punt returner. He's more of a straight line speed. You want him, he's more of a running back type of guy, right? That's the way to think about it. Like punt returners are kind of like slot receivers, and kick returners are kind of like running backs, right? So I do think that like Golden could compete for that punt return job. And I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up winning it. And if he wins it, I think it's going to be really hard for Mecole Hardman to make this team. Just kind of a tough shake of it for him, right? Like you think that the team that you're signing with has issues at speed receiver, has issues at punt return, and then all of a sudden they add Golden and Williams, two guys who can return the ball pretty well. So
still might get a solid 200K out of it for not making the team. 150K in bonuses, 150K in bonuses, and then 50K in workout bonuses. So still might get 200K.
The other thing too, like he's a vested veteran too, right? So his money's going to guarantee if he makes the roster in week 1, which again makes it even tougher,
harder. Yeah, he's got. I
smart ass NFL PA.
I went over some of the roster battles and kind of went over some of those things. And with Hardman, he's the oldest between the three. So if we're looking at Melton and Heath, right, as the ones that he could be competing for wide receiver 6, Hardman's 27, Melton's 26, Heath is 25. Hardman will make 1.17 million on his base salary. Heath and Melton are only 1.03. It's not a huge difference. But then also Hardman will be an unrestricted free agent, whereas Heath and Melton would have restricted free agency next year if somehow they broke out. And like you said, the whole vested veteran piece is another nightmare for Hardman. So yeah, he's got literally
the other thing,
everything.
The other thing with Hardman is he can't work down that salary number either, because that's the veteran minimum.
Yeah.
For how many years he's been in the league. So it's not like he can be like, well, just pay me $800K like a rookie. No, you just can't do that.
He's going to need that Desmond Howard moment in camp where he returns a punt for a touchdown in the final week and earns a spot that way or something, because that's probably going to be his avenue for being on the team. Go Pack also said, what does a successful season look like for LVN?
Starting his first game since high school.
Oh man.
I mean,
he's never started in Green Bay.
He didn't start when Kingsley was the guy who replaced Preston, right? And Preston got the ceremonial starts even though they were working in that rotation. So I don't think so.
No, you're right. He has not started a game for the Packers, which I don't think I ever really put together. That is crazy. I thought for like, sure, just like on like one of those games, you just by default of like the package that they had in on that play, he might have just started one by accident or something. But you are correct.
Teams make it a point to like just throw stuff at, like you'll get a lot of bad looks, offense, defense wise, that first play of the game, because teams will choose who they want to be. Like Mercedes Lewis got a bunch of starts in Green Bay when he wasn't playing that many snaps for the Packers, right? So to a certain extent, it's like a sign of respect type of thing. And that's why I thought it was very weird that LVN got bumped out of that spot by Kingsley Enagbare last year.
Yeah. We'll see. I'm with you. It's starting, and I would like to see some level of impact from a pass rush standpoint would be very, very nice as well. Hopefully better than what we've seen over the first, like, can I just say growth, improvement, like signs of something, signs of there being
signs of life. Yeah.
Signs of life would be very, very nice. I'll go with that as well. All right. John says coaching trees don't mean a lot. Look at Belichick. But do you have any thoughts as to why Matt LaFleur doesn't have a very successful tree as compared to Shanahan, McVay, despite being so successful?
On the offensive side, I mean, he's really grown his own guys instead of bringing in, I guess ringers isn't probably the best term. I know what you mean, but Shanahan and McVay have gotten better probably isn't the right word either. More experienced assistant coaches. And then on the defensive side, our defense has been a mess. I mean, do we count Bob Saleh now? Does he count as part of the LaFleur tree? I don't think so.
Not quite.
But yeah, I mean, the Packers historically have not spent a lot on coaching staff, right? They told Holmgren to kick rocks when he wanted GM powers. When Sherman came in, they gave him GM powers, told him to go, got, first year head coach and Mike McCarthy. You know, a lot of people wanted the team to spend a whole lot of money on, you know, a Mike Shanahan or something like that when the job ended up going to LaFleur. LaFleur probably made somewhere in the ballpark of like $4 to $5 million on his first contract.
Yeah.
You know, he had been a 1 year play calling offensive coordinator for a non-playoff Titans team, and they hired him as head coach. They kept over the defensive staff. We've seen, you know, defensive coordinators change and some assistant coaches just like continue to keep their jobs, right? I mean, we talked about it with Jerry Montgomery, Jason Rebrovich, right? Those are guys who coached under several different staffs. Um, the Packers kind of mantra has been, you know, spend more on front office stuff and spend less on coaching staffs, and have the money to be able to pay out these big bonuses that they want to give players, um, within like the structure that the team wants those contracts to be. So yeah, just from like a cash flow standpoint, you know, it's a relatively new thing that they kind of are paying good money for assistance. And I know they backed up the Brinks truck for like Dom Capers in the past. Pettin came in with some bona fides, but that obviously didn't end up working out. The other thing too is you got to remember, anytime you fire a defensive coordinator, you're not done paying them. You still got to pay them. So usually the staff that you hire after you fire guys, if they still have years under their contract, are not, you know, there's no clean break, right? The clean breaks, that's when you can hire the super staff and all that stuff. When you don't have that clean break, you're basically paying two coaching staffs at the same time, and that usually doesn't mean that you're taking two swings back to back.
Jeff Affley probably has the best opportunity to be the, Matt's best coaching tree guy if he can go on and get a head coaching job and, go out and crush it somewhere. But your point, their defenses have not been good enough. Obviously, Mike Pettin, Joe Barry, et cetera, were not going to be in any head coaching conversations because the defenses were not good. And then on the offensive side, it's always hard as an offensive coordinator. I mean, obviously it's happened in the past, but there's a reason Matt left the Rams is to go to the Titans is because he wanted play calling opportunities. It's going to be tough for Steno to take that next jump without being the play caller. And everyone just pointing to Matt as like, well, Matt's the guy that makes that offense go. And even prior to that, it was Matt and Aaron that were both kind of making the offense go. So it's like, well, what is the offensive coordinator even doing? And even then Hackett got his opportunity and that didn't go so great.
Yeah, that's the other thing too, right? Is like both Kyle and Sean are more, from what I understand, they're more hands-on with like the pass catchers, right?
Okay.
And like Mike McDaniel's like really involved in like the run game, for example, right?
Yep.
LaFleur's the guy who's got the hands on the quarterback. So you still have room to breathe under a Kyle, a Sean, a Mike McDaniel, to be kind of like the quarterback whisperer thing that everyone wants to hire, right? You could still give a Kevin O'Connell from a Sean McVay. If Kevin O'Connell was in Green Bay, he's like assistant quarterback coach, basically, right? That's you from that standpoint, you probably have to leave Green Bay to then be like a play calling offensive coordinator, and then from there, move up to head coach.
It would have been the
so
Getsy play, except Getsy did not work out where in Chicago or
exactly. Perfect. That's a great example. Yeah.
And obviously that did not work out for him. So yeah, there hasn't been a ton of opportunity. I mean, Hackett got his opportunity as head coach. It did not go great. Getsy got his chance at offensive coordinator twice. Did not go great. I don't think anyone else is. Oh no. Well, under Hackett, was it Outen that got the offensive coordinator job there?
Yeah. Cause he was the tight ends coach, and then he ended up going under Hackett.
So there's been a few, hasn't worked out great so far. We'll see if maybe that changes over time. All right, looking back at the past 4 years, it seems that Josh Myers was a big problem. Do you think Matt LaFleur Gute fell prey to the sunk cost fallacy?
I think so. I think the other thing that you need to account for here, beyond what happens after the ball is snapped, which is usually how we evaluate these guys, right? Which is fair. Seemed like they really like Josh Myers as a person. And then the other factor is, Jordan Love was a young quarterback. And what do you do with from what I understand, again, like Josh Myers was doing a lot of the protection calls and stuff like that. And, Mike points when safeties are rotating and stuff like that. So he was taking a lot off of Jordan's plate mentally. Now, whether you think that's an issue and a quarterback should be doing that all the time and, can do whatever with the center, you can make that decision on your own. If you I'm sure Peyton Manning probably thinks that and is like, why is the center doing anything? This is my show to run, right? But I do think that was a factor, so it's worth mentioning.
Yeah, no, I think the communication was key. I wish by the time last year came around that there just would have been more opportunity for competition there. I almost wish that Jenkins would have moved to center last year, that Ryan would have just taken right guard, and that Walker would have taken left tackle, and that like Myers and Morgan could have fought over left guard or something like that. And I just wish there was a bit more competition, or at least like openness to just Myers not being unequivocally the guy. And I think we saw this offseason that Green Bay wasn't willing to pay him again, and no other team was really willing to pay him. He didn't even get a starting job. Like, I think that writing was on the wall sooner. And I'm with you. I think the communication part was key. I wish there would have been a bit more competition in the last couple of years at that spot, just to see if somebody else could have taken it up, and I guess maybe Elton a year sooner or something.
I know he is coming off of the injury that is not as scary as we thought it was going to be, against Philadelphia. But he did end up getting less money on the open market than Eric Stokes, right? So, and every NFL team had an opportunity to sign him. So that kind of tells you what they think of his talent level.
And if you would have told me he signed for somewhere 1 year, $3 million, I would have said, oh, he took less to be a starter. He didn't. He's a clear backup with the Jets too, which is, again, pretty remarkable, all things considered. All right, John says, I know you don't have much Elgersma film, but are we going to get a mini Elgersma breakdown? Dusty did one for you guys, right?
He did, yeah. We got our hands on some film. I haven't searched too hard for it. I've got some like CFL playbooks and stuff that I
have it if you want it. I do have it.
You have the film?
I have the film.
No, I'm so like really like I'm just looking at like arm talent and execution, and I was able to see that on some of the clips that he had posted with like the all 22 and stuff. Because there's so much projecting when you're going from. It really is a different sport, man. It really is a different sport. Here's
how spoiled I am, Justis. Now that we have, a certain ability to watch plays in a certain way, I can't go back to just 60 minutes of film and like having to go through and like scan through the running plays and then scan through like the 10 like little bubble screens to the outside and like actually find like a 3rd and 8 where he's got to throw down the field for something. And plus, like, for me, I have like, you get used to like the finger commands of like fast forwarding, resetting, moving forward certain ways, and like where you can basically just manipulate it to get to any point that you want. And exactly. I was starting to watch the film of Elgersma, and I'm like, it was like I was watching like literally like a foreign film. I'm like, I don't know how to maneuver this. I don't know how to get to the plays that I want. And I'm like, I watched like 5 throws, and I'm just like, I'm good. I don't even know if this guy's going to make it past like 2 weeks of like mini camps and OTAs yet. I like him a lot. I'm excited about him, but I couldn't get there. As much of a nerd as I am, Justis, I've become spoiled, and I couldn't get myself to watch tape the old fashioned way.
We're getting soft.
We're very soft. SAWFT. It is ridiculous in a lot of ways. All right. Schneidman's article kind of confirms what you've been saying. I could literally spend the next 3 hours talking about this. Well, let's start with this, Justis. What were your takeaways from Schneidman's article today?
Jaire got an restructure offer and didn't immediately accept it.
Yep.
That's probably one of the interesting things. Not surprised they offered him a restructure. They clearly didn't want to pay him on the $17.5 million in cash this year. Beyond that, no real takeaways other than like, Jaire is going to show up to mandatory stuff, not get fined, all that. So he's going to show up. And again, I mean, the ball's really in the Packers' court. I don't know if there's that much pressure on Jaire right now.
No.
Because if ultimately they write it out, Jaire is making 17.5, which is what he wanted the whole time. Right.
On the week 1. Yep.
Right. So I thought it was interesting. I know Matt said that like he didn't put it in the article, but he was saying that there still is the chance that they release him before mandatory minicamp starts, right?
Yep.
So I guess there's somewhat of a deadline there. I mean, if he gets hurt, at minimum, you're gonna have to do. If he gets hurt, you release him. You're still gonna have to have an injury settlement that's involved, and that's gonna be a lot of money too.
Yep.
So I guess
I
that's
don't think
kind
there's
of a
any
deadline.
chance. I don't think they have any chance. There's any chance that he practices before this is settled. I think it's 0.0% chance that he practices
Well,
before it's settled.
him showing up to mandatory minicamp doesn't mean that he's going to practice,
That's what I
right?
mean. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think there's any chance that he actually practices if he shows up. And to me, like, I feel like the showing up for him at mandatory minicamp is more of like the make a decision. Like, this is his, like,
Yeah.
this is the only, like, this is the only thing he remotely has under his control right now is like, I can keep showing up to things and kind of making this a little bit awkward for you guys while you kind of plan this out. And then you got to tell me that I can't practice and that like, and then everyone else on the team is wondering, well, what's going on here? Like, figure this out. This is kind of his only card left to play of like, do something, because otherwise I'm just going to show up like I'm still part of this team.
Yeah. And I know people are like, oh, I'm tired of this stuff. And it's like, this is kind of how the Packers want to do business, man. If you want to extract talent out of guys on these longer contracts and things, this is what's going to happen, right? Like the Bengals are doing this too. Sort of for different reasons, for sure. I think it's football reasons for the Packers. Like it's not a cash flow issue
Correct.
in Green Bay. It's really just about like, this is the
Is it worth
smart
it?
way to allocate cap space, right?
Yeah.
Um, but like Elton Jacobs might be in the same spot. Kenny Clark next year could very well be in the same spot. And even if we solve the Elton Jenkins problem this year, that doesn't mean it gets solved next year either, right? Like when guys are on these contracts and you do these 1 year save face things, I mean, that's kind of how you get into the Trey Hendrickson situation where it has to get updated every single year because you never actually tore up the contract in its entirety and kind of gave a guy a top of the market deal. So yeah, I mean, I just think that this stuff is going to happen more and more in Green Bay just because of the way their contract structure kind of works. They want guys non-guaranteed money, long-term deals, and they don't have very many triggers toward the end of the contracts, really after like the first 2 years.
Are you surprised in any way that Jaire and Elton specifically, with the way that their contracts are structured, basically allowed Green Bay to have this team option in the final year with no trigger on like March whatever to like basically make
Well,
this
I don't think
decision?
the Packers are going to move. Like the Packers will just like so like Aaron Banks has made more money with the Green Bay Packers right now than Reggie White ever did in his career. Right?
Yep.
The Packers want that year 3, year 4 where they have total fluidity on what they can do with the players.
For
And
sure.
they'll just up that signing bonus until you say yes, basically. So am I surprised? Not really. Like, no. If you're going to re-sign in Green Bay, this is the way they want to do it. Do I think that it could be a factor in like free agency and stuff like that when there's actually multiple teams bidding for your services and stuff like that? Yeah, I could absolutely see how that could be a factor. But with their own players, I mean, it really comes down to like, do you want an extension before you step up on the field next time, right? Especially with these guys coming off of rookie contracts and stuff. So no, I mean it's weird that the Packers kind of uniquely do the 4-year structure, no guaranteed money after, beyond the signing bonus, really. But I'm not surprised players take it because if you get an injury in this league, I mean, it costs you a lot of money. And this is football, man. It's not an if, it's a win, right? So ultimately, you're going to have an injury. You want to have the contract when you have that injury, right?
Yep.
It's football. There's 100% injury rate. No one makes it out of this game totally healthy. So guys want to sign deals and they want to sign them early and they want to get that big paycheck. And for the most part, that's going to be the one big contract that you're going to get in your NFL career. So no, I'm not not surprised that they don't really care what happens 4 years down the line because really they're trying to get the signing bonus.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Very well said. All right, Spider Monkey says with the Jaire situation, them offering a restructure. Only thing I can think about are reports last year that we only offered Aaron Jones $3.5 million. Do you think the Packers are lowballing Jaire? What's it look like? Also, Gute said in the press conference he didn't offer a restructure, and everyone said it would look bad for the team. And other players look at it wasn't because of his play, it was because of injury. So we can't trust Gute at press conferences because telling what's really happening. Thoughts on that? Obviously a lot of different directions to go with that, Justis, but I don't go in any direction that you want.
Yeah, I think injuries are a really interesting thing, right? Because usually if you get hurt at work, you get paid that money.
Yep.
Right? Like we have workers' comp laws in this country for a reason, right? The way it's used in the NFL is not normal, but it's clearly understandable why, like, okay, Jaire hasn't been on the field for 20, he's missed 20 games in the last 2 years. Obviously, that's a factor. In terms of the low balling and stuff like that, I don't know what that contract looks like. I have no idea. I do think it was interesting. Was it? Damn, I don't want to get it wrong. It was either Spoon or it was Demovsky when they wrote up their article on Jaire a couple weeks ago. They said that basically the way that the incentives could work is that Jaire could actually end up making more money this year than the $17.5 million, but it would all basically come via the incentive structure, which is something we've seen the Packers do before, right? Like Preston Smith's contract restructure last year. If he had actually hit all of his sack metrics, which like he wasn't close to hitting them, but if Preston Smith had hit all his sack metrics in his contract, he actually would have made more in 2024 than he would have before the restructure, which is, I think, probably a factor in why the Packers were at least okay with moving off of him once Preston allegedly, reportedly asked for a trade and all that stuff to a 3-4 defense. So Jaire's going to make a lot more than that $3.5 million, I think, at least in terms of like if he hits all the incentives and stuff like that. So I don't know what that deal looks like. There's a pretty wide gap between what happens if you get hurt again and you only play like a month, 2 months of the season, and what if you return it to all-pro standing. I do think that, again, I kind of mentioned this earlier where I was like, okay, there's like 1 year solves, but then this issue pops up again next year. Like, Jaire, what the hell are we going to do next season? Once it like, is it going to be an extension and we just forget the injuries and stuff like that? Or like, it's so weird how the NFL treats injuries because we only react to the most recent thing, even if it isn't a long-term issue. So like we forget about Jaire's injuries because he had a good year. That's the same body that was banged up that you didn't want to pay $17.5 million this year, right? So I don't know. It gets really weird once you start factoring health into all of these discussions.
If they do come up with a compromise and they figure out a contract for this year with incentives that make sense for both sides, less money in the base salary, but maybe more opportunities via incentives for him to even make more money this year via playing time and interception incentives or what it is.
I don't think that they're going to get interception incentives and stuff though.
I think it'd just be playing time, right?
Yeah, I think I would assume that it's
games played,
game day actives.
Yes, agreed. Like which I think makes the most sense. That's what I've proposed as well.
Yeah,
but I also think it makes sense actually for both sides to say we're also going to add in like a $30 million roster bonus on the first day of the league next year that kicks in or something that basically is an automatic void for next year, so that Jaire hits free agency at age 29, still in his 20s. Packers don't have to deal with this again next season. And it massively incentivized Jaire in every way, shape, or form to be awesome this year, because if he plays and is active, that's going to get him his game day bonus and can get him up to 18 million or whatever this year. And then if he plays well, he's a free agent and can get a massive contract on the open market next year. So now he's even more incentive, not just to be active on game days, but be active on game days and playing all pro level football. To me, that is a win for both sides. And then you can just ignore the whole Jaire situation next year. You both work it out amicably this year. And to me, that's what hopefully would work for both sides.
Here's the thing. Do you get a no tag clause on the contract?
I'm happy to do a no tag clause on it as well.
Yeah. I mean, that's the only other thing where it's like, okay, that's the only thing that can continue to drag it on. Right.
It would be a handshake agreement between both sides. I'm going to do everything I can to be the greatest Packer this year, starting every single game, doing everything I can to get a big contract next season. You get another year of a really good corner. You don't have to pay me as much if I'm not healthy. I get it. I haven't been healthy in the past. You don't have to pay me as much if I end up not being able to play again this year, but I get to go free next offseason. You guys can't do anything about it, but you weren't able to get anything for me on the open market. And your alternative is cutting me and getting nothing in return whatsoever. So again, I think for both sides, I still think there's an agreement there to be made.
I mean, he's still listening, right?
Yeah. Well, that was the other thing that you take away from it too, is that he said he wants to be a Packer, or at least per Schneidman today. That was the other interesting aspect of it, which this is the first time we got any clarification on Jaire's side of things. The last thing we heard from Jaire was, I don't know why you guys not to me. I don't even know if I'm going to be here and I have nothing positive to say. So this is quite a bit different from that point in time.
Right. What a saga. Yeah. That's what I've been saying all offseason is I have no idea, man.
Can't wait to talk to you about it again over the course of the next 6 weeks, nonstop, no matter what happens. It'll be great no matter what. All right. I'm probably the only one that thinks this, but it rubs me the wrong way that after Gute says we need more urgency, players and coaches are playing baseball and softball games, going to basketball games instead of training and practice. I fully see the other hand of they're human and it's their only time off, but it just doesn't scream we want to win a Super Bowl. Chicken, I can't disagree more. I think that is very much on their personal time, and the fact that they're doing not only stuff with the team, but stuff for charity as well in those situations, and going to basketball games or things like that. That is all of their own prerogative. They work a ton of time, put a ton of time, effort, and energy into building their bodies this time of year to get ready for OTAs, mini camps, training camp. I do not expect them to be robots through their entire career in Green Bay, regardless of the sense of urgency one way or the other. Anything to add there, Justis?
I mean, the softball game was because they were already in town, right?
Correct. For OTAs, yes.
Right. They were in between phase 1 and phase 2. They're already in town, and it's a charity game that before Jordan Love, it was Donald Driver, right?
Yeah. And Favre had it. Rodgers has done it. Like they've all been a part of it at some point in time. Yeah.
Yeah. So again, I'm not too worried about that. Again, like I don't know what people think the training, like it's around this time of the year, it's recovery still, or you're ramping out of recovery into training. Like for the most part, like NFL dudes don't get in NFL shape until training camp, and that can last until the first month of the season. And we were even with that slow playing, we see bodies break down all the time, right? So again, football is a sport, 100% injury rate. You can't just grind, and think that you're going to make it out the other end healthy.
Did you see the rosters for that charity game, by the way?
No, I know the quarterbacks did well. That's all I know.
The roster, I can't find it right now. It's bothering me. It was a really crappy roster for both sides. Do people not love Jordan Love? Do they not support their quarterback? No, I'm mostly being facetious here, but like the only guys on offense, like basically the only veterans that like play or like big names that played on either side were basically Tucker Kraft and Matthew Golden on offense and Evan Williams on defense. And the rest were literally like fringe roster guys and guys that are probably not going to be Packers. Most of them or rookies, etc. Like where's Josh Jacobs? Where's Xavier McKinney? Why are the veterans not? Why are the wide receivers not supporting Jordan Love here? Step up to the plate, literally, guys. Do we have a leadership issue? I'm totally kidding, but it was a very weird roster that I was surprised there wasn't just a little bit more star power to get out there to support Jordan Love, but I digress. Either way, Chicken, I have no issue with what they're doing in those situations. That's totally normal, totally good. And I have, again, no problem with it whatsoever. All right. If Jaire gets injured at camp, does he get the full 17.5 mil contract? Ken, the salary cap on Twitter, tweeted that he would get the full amount. It depends on the length of the injury and how long he would be out for. If he tore his Achilles, tore his ACL, then he's out for the year. And then you're basically owe them his entire salary. If he's going to be out for 8 weeks, and you cut him, then he usually is going to get an 8-week settlement based on what he would have been paid for that 8 weeks. And then he would go to their team and then could potentially sign after that.
You nailed it. I mean, the only thing I have to add on top of that is like, if Jaire gets hurt, he's still, they still have to provide medical services to him too. So, he still has to get checked out by the team and all that stuff. So, yeah, you nailed it. The settlement stuff is the big thing where it's, okay, let's say you got hurt for 3 weeks. Okay, we're going to pay you 3 weeks, but we want to get off your roster spot now, right?
Yeah.
So that kind of alleviates the roster spot question while still paying him until he gets healthy, right?
Also, if you waive somebody injured and somebody actually claims them, they pick up that tab, I believe, if I remember correctly.
That part I don't know. I believe
it is, because I think so. There was one time, I think it was the Patriots. Don't quote me on this entire story. Some team had like a 5th or 6th round pick, or maybe it was the Patriots. There's some team that had a 5th or 6th round pick who like immediately tore his Achilles, and some team waived him injured, basically being like, well, nobody's going to claim this guy. He was a 5th or 6th round pick, and now he's out for the year. And some team claimed him and basically took on full responsibility of the injury, put him on IR for the season, paid the entirety, but now got like an extra 5th or 6th round pick that was going to be healthy the following year or whatever. But usually the team's just like, well, we'll get this guy back on injured reserve after we waive him injured. But some team literally was like, no, we're going to claim him. I think it was the Patriots that claimed him, but I think you do take on the responsibility in that situation. Could be wrong though. Could be wrong. All right. Jonathan says all about Jaire. Let's go. I think we talked about Jaire already. I think we did get a super chat. Let me get that really quick. Which rookie from last year do you think will make the biggest jump in 2025?
Let me go look at that rookie class again. I hope Jordan Morgan, right?
It'd be a good one.
I mean, Cooper's kind of already broken out. Evan Williams is kind of already broken out. Those are the guys that I'm the most hopeful on. Otherwise, like Bullard real deal might be a reserve this year. Like, could be two injuries away from playing time.
Especially if Jaire is back. Because then you've got Jaire Nixon on the outside, Hobbs in the slot, Williams and McKinney at safety. And now there's really not a ton of opportunity. Did I give you my theory on what I would do if I were the Packers in that situation?
I can't remember.
I'm not playing Jaire on early base downs anymore. He's not out there. I'm trying to save him for as much of the season as I can. Hobbs and Nixon are starting on the outside. Bullard's going to be in the slot in more like 12 personnel, big nickel situations to open things up. And then on obvious passing downs, Jaire's coming in. Hobbs is kicking to the slot, and everything else is as is. But I'm not playing Jaire on any. I'm going to try to limit him to about 40-ish snaps per game instead of like 65. He's not good on rundowns anyway. Again, obviously, if they pass it, then yes, he still is. But he's not great in those situations. His shoulder is not. He's still to the point where he's aggressively taking on people in the run game. Just don't need it. I'm cool with him. Just more focusing on obvious passing downs.
I just don't know how many examples of that there are in the NFL and how
probably not many
to that.
But
yeah, they are.
But
yeah, I think to our question, I think it has to be Jordan Morgan because I'm not expecting a lot of Marshawn Lloyd this year. I'm expecting less out of Javon Bullard this year. Edgerrin Cooper and Evan Williams already kind of broke out. So could they take another step? Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Their games weren't perfect, but Jordan Morgan is the one where I'm like, in terms of where you were last year to where you could be, definitely up there. Plus we got to remember with Morgan, he was dealing with the shoulder like all of last season. Didn't he get hurt in the summer last year?
Yeah, he was a little bit banged up in the summer and then had 3 different instances of like shoulder stuff. And then finally they shut him down.
Right. So hopefully a healthy Jordan Morgan.
There's
get
a
better luck
chance
there.
where only Cooper and Williams are starting on this of that entire group,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
Legitimately. So that's a little bit
Yeah.
interesting too. Um, I'm with you on Morgan. I could see Cooper taking another jump. You could make the argument of
Mhm.
like Lloyd and Hopper going from completely injured and not playing at all to anything is a jump in and of itself. But basically, Morgan's in that same sort of situation. So I think Morgan's the right answer here. All right. What else do we got here? My thoughts for John Kramer's comment is that the coaches underneath Matt LaFleur have never gone to decent situations, hard to succeed in such venues. Chicago is certainly a great example of that. Denver was interesting with Hackett and then clearly thought they were going to get Rodgers and did not get Rodgers, pivoted to Russell Wilson and what was an all-time awful trade for Denver. And then obviously Getsy in Vegas was not a great situation either. So there's definitely a piece of that. And then Hackett in New York with the Jets, that was a whole another situation. So yeah, it's not been the greatest situations in the world for sure. COVID Toe says, I hate when I have such a great question, then Andy explains it, and I feel like such a tool. This is a compliment to you, by the way, Andy. And what is the best five? What if the best five isn't with Banks in the starting offensive line? They've made a huge mistake, is what I would say.
Yeah, that was again. Aaron Banks today has made more money from the Green Bay Packers than Reggie White did in his entire career in Green Bay. So that was a very costly roll of the dice that did not pan out, if that is the case. Um, I I don't think that this is actually a thing that's in play. I will say, if this is the case, Aaron Banks post June 1st release in 2026 collision course, right? If he's not starting, they're gonna eat just all of that dead cap.
Joe Johnson's going to have some competition for god awful free agent signings in Packers history. In that case, they will probably release him next year if he literally can't earn a starting spot, and they will have paid him $29 million for 1 year of being a backup offensive lineman, which I don't know if you're aware is a very bad investment. So yeah, that would be a very bad. I just don't see a world in which this exists. I think Banks is going to be good. I think he's going to be a really solid left guard, and I'm excited for him. But yeah, that would be a pretty nightmare situation. We don't know the details of Ja's restructure that Green Bay offered, right? No, we do not. Does he take it or no? Don't know. If I were Green Bay, I'd offer availability incentives for Ja to get the original number. And yeah, we talked about that exact thing as well. Ben is excited about Justis, which we all are, of course. Are we going to be a vertical threat offense? I saw a lot of players last year where we just stretched the field or took the check down. A lot of plays last year where we just stretched the field or took the check down. What are your thoughts on this, Justice?
Jordan Love is a quarterback who can move around, but is not a guy who can quickly escape the pocket. So I think that the way that they want to build this offense based off of kind of how they've changed post Rodgers and the additions that they've made, even this offseason, right? Really since Rodgers is what I'm talking about, but the trend line is continuing through. I think they want to be a downhill run team and go off play action shots. And yeah, I mean, kind of be a, vertical threat to check down type of offense. I don't think they want to be this stretch run game. We're going play action boots off of, full progressions where you're looking at 5 different receivers throughout. I mean, it's really like 1-2 check down. Okay. Linebackers and safeties didn't bite. We'll live to play another game. I mean, obviously things change on like third downs. It's 3rd and 6, right? They're going to try to go quick game because that's what gives them the best numbers, right? Where, we're going to run some slants, we're going to run some flats, we're going to run some hitches, right? But I think, on base downs for the most part, I mean, I think that's kind of the team that they want to be. They want to be a vertical run game and then a vertical pass game and kind of put those linebackers into conflict. I mean, I think all these things kind of tie into each other to a certain extent. And then when they want to do stuff laterally, they can go to quick game and they can go to, all the auxiliary runs, right? The end of rounds, the jets, all that stuff. So that's how I see it for sure.
Yeah. I'm interested to see how this offense just kind of fits together a little bit more in 2025 with Jordan being healthy, a little bit more practice time, not needing to build offenses with Malik Willis out of nowhere after him only being here for a couple weeks. Josh Jacobs being here for a second season. It felt like some of the stuff that they found that was really successful with Josh maybe didn't meld with some of the stuff that they've done in the past quite as well. So I think they're going to have a much more cohesive offense in 2025. At least that's my hope and my expectation.
From like a personnel standpoint too, right? Like they're getting bigger on the offensive line, right?
Yep.
That's signaling vertical run game. And then they're getting faster at outside receiver, which is again signaling vertical passing game. I think that's kind of what they want to do. I mean, it's not really like monkey in the middle, but it's kind of playing monkey in the middle with those linebackers, right? Where it's like, how bad do you want to fit the run? And then can we throw it over your heads when you actually want to fit the run that hard and you could see it that fast?
Linebacker's a very interesting position right now because colleges are playing it totally different. There's not a lot of good ones, and NFL teams are putting you in complete no man's land in that situation and doing everything they can to get you to take one false step in one wrong direction. And that one tiny small false step might be the difference between a 1 yard loss and a 25-yard gain, or maybe even more. So like, there are very few positions that I would probably want to be playing less right now than being in the middle of a defense all by myself, going up against a LaFleur or a Shanahan or a McVay offense where you're just going to have me in hell. It's a nightmare. And like I said, there's just not very many good ones, and the college game is not preparing you for it. So man, good freaking luck.
I think there's a legitimate argument that it's the second most important position in the NFL right now. Not in terms of how the NFL actually values it.
Yeah.
But in terms of like the area of the field, where the ball is being thrown, where the ball is being run, how you design your scheme around personnel and stuff like that, how you set up plays, like the whole game is really built around like, what are their linebackers? Can we get their linebackers to bite on something, whether it's a pass or a run or whatever?
Yeah, no, I'm right there with
and again,
you.
To your point, there's not very many good ones, right? And when there are guys who are highly touted at the college levels, are getting moved around. Abdul Carter was an off-ball linebacker 2 years ago. He's playing edge rusher for the New York Giants now. Micah Parsons was an off-ball linebacker at Penn State. Jalen Walker, right? The kid who got drafted by the Atlanta Falcons. He was an off-ball linebacker. They're moving him to the end.
Yeah.
So, people cannot wait to move these linebackers to defensive end. And there's like 3 good ones right now. One of them is Dre Greenlaw, and he's always hurt. So
yeah, it's remarkable. Hopefully the ascension of Cooper and Quay continues, and I hope that we don't miss Anthony Campanelli as much as I think we might at some points, but I still have a lot of faith, hopefully, in that linebacker room moving forward. All right, for the members that are here, we're not going to obviously be able to get to everything. I want to get Justis out of here at a reasonable time, so just going to kind of go through a few more before we get out of here. If you had to guess, rank the receivers by most yards and touchdowns this year.
We're not counting Kraft, right? Receivers.
Correct, just receivers. Yep, sorry.
Yeah. I think Reed, Dobbs, Golden, Wicks. I mean, that's a really conservative call, but I think that's probably what we're in line for right now.
Yep. I think Wicks and Golden could be interchangeable maybe, but I would probably go in the same order there.
Yeah. And again, I mean, yeah, it's going to be a lot of the same stuff, guys. Like it's going to be a lot of we're spreading touches around. Guys are going to get worked in the rotation. The only guy who's really locked into a spot is Jaden Reed playing in the slot, right? Outside of that, I think it's going to be a pretty heavy rotation between those other top 4 receivers on the team.
Outside of Josh Jacobs, stay away from Packers in fantasy football. I don't give fantasy football advice very much because I'm usually not the top one at it, and you're probably better off taking it from somewhere else. But that's been my use of advice over the last couple of years: is don't draft Packers wide receivers, and for the most part, that's paid off pretty well so far.
It's always fun, and once we get to July, late July, August, you get the fantasy football people that you're friends with just hitting you up in the DMs and like, What are the Packers going to do at wide receiver? Who's going to be the wide receiver one?
Stay away.
Don't do it.
Yep.
Don't do it. Get the guy off of the waiver wire. He's going to be available at some point.
Kraft is probably playable at tight end. Jacobs is definitely playable at running back. Stay away from the wide receivers. Too much. And then once Watson comes back too, just good night. It's over. There's too many mouths to feed there. All right. Love and football. Do you think the amount of competition at several positions, specifically with depth, that we are likely to lose more rosterable players than we'd like? And who would those fringe players be? Specifically, who do you think those players are that are in the most danger to potentially be claimed off of waivers if they don't make the 53?
I had an article that I worked on that was similar to this, but Chorus is not loading. Damn USB Nation. Oh, no, never mind. Here it comes. I had a list of guys that made the 53 last year that I think have a chance of being released. If I can find this damn article, good God.
Well, so Emmanuel Wilson, Malik Heath, Bo Melton.
Yep.
Maybe Ben Sims, maybe John Fitzpatrick. Probably, any of the Travis Glover, Jacob Monk, Kadeem Telford, just because often, Royce Newman got another chance. Like, guys just get chances when you're an offensive lineman. If a Colby Wooden were to get released, he could definitely be one. If an Enigbare or a Brenton Cox were to get released, I think they could get picked up somewhere. Don't think any of the linebackers are in danger. Corners probably not.
I can't find this damn thing. But yeah, you're basically listing all the guys that I thought of.
Zane Anderson, maybe.
Yeah, they're just. It's going to be really interesting to see what they do, special teams wise this year. Again, because I really as dumb as this sounds, I really do think that X factor is Colin Oliver in terms of the roster construction and how you figure out how to get him not only on the 53, but also the 46 on game days and not hurt you in other spots. Right. I think that's probably why they wanted to do things like add Isaiah Simmons and make sure, or it's all right, we're throwing another body at this because the fifth linebacker is going to have to play special teams. He's going to have to do it really well. I think all those guys are, potential guys that could get claimed. I don't know how many of those guys have trade value. We'll see what happens.
Enigbare?
Maybe.
I would think conditional.
But it would be late.
Sort of
it's a 1-year rental for a late. It would have to be a team. So teams are fine. No one's begging for a Kingsley Enigbare right now, right?
True.
Or they we just came out of a draft with good pass rushers. So it'd have to be a team up against the cap who suffer an injury before cut downs. Right. I think that's what it would have to come down to. And then not picking up, toward the front of the waiver claims system. So,
yeah.
And I think he's got a chance. Yeah.
I was going to say the other thing I'll add too is just everyone always thinks that their team is going to have 5 or 6 guys claimed off of waivers. And usually you end up with none or maybe 1 or 2 guys get claimed. And even then it's not always the guy that you would expect it to be. And there's not a ton of guys claimed each time. So, I don't think Green Bay's at this major risk, but depending on who they release, there could definitely be a few names out there that could get claimed to other teams. Baby QB, no meetup scheduled for opening weekend yet, but I'll continue to kind of keep an eye on that and see if we can make something work. I appreciate you asking, and we'll get something set up eventually. Dear Packaday fam, for Andy and the love of Lombardi, we need to make Savion Sex Panther Williams happen. I don't know if you heard this is my scouting report on Savion Williams. I said he's got Sex Panther hands where 60% of the time they work every time. So that was my scouting report on Savion Williams. So that's where that's coming from. We'll try to continue to put it into the ether, Snoop Robbie Rob every once in a while. How would Jaire change the calculus of which guys competing for the last 2 corner spots would be most appealing to you? Or do you think even with Ja, they aren't relying on him to be a focal point? I'll just really quickly say, I think if Jaire is back, I think you have Jaire, Nixon, Hobbs, Valentine, Bullard, who can hop down, And then I think just the question is, do you keep 5 or 6? And then regardless, so it's either 1 or 2 spots that are open. And I think it'll primarily be Kalen King, Kamal Haddon, and Micah Robinson fighting for those 1 to 2 spots.
Yes. And the
Maybe
interesting
Jonathan
thing
Baldwin.
there is I think they want a special teams guy. Valentine isn't really playing. None of those guys are really playing special teams, right? In terms of non-returners. Both Corey Ballantyne and Robert Rochelle played more special team snaps than Brandon McManus last year, for perspective, and they're both gone, right? So they have a lot of DB snaps to make up, and they're already playing the safeties like crazy. Bisaccia hasn't really wanted to use wide receivers on special teams outside of Malik Heath in non-returner roles. Whenever I'm talking about special teams guys, I'm never talking about returners because I almost kind of put them in a different bucket. So I'm kind of the mindset of like, if Jaire comes back, one, I think just in general, they're going to be pushed in a direction to keep 5 instead of 6, just because I don't know if that there's going to be 6 worth keeping, considering how deep the rest of the roster is, right? And then you're adding the Colin Oliver of it all, where you can't really count him as a linebacker. You can't really count him as a defensive end in terms of the game day roster and stuff like that. So you're going to be short a number somewhere. I think you choose it to be short at corner, but then that 5th guy still has to play, and he's going to have to play a lot of special team snaps, right? So I almost look at that as like a non-defensive position. Like
special teams argument for sure.
Right.
And
and I'm sure people want to look at this and they're like, well, I want a good corner in 2 years, get a developmental guy and just park his ass on the bench. It's just like, that's not how this is going to work.
That's how you got into the 32nd ranked special teams year over year when you were keeping guys like Alex Light as your 53rd guy to develop and didn't keep that as a special teams guy. So,
Right. And again, like when we talk about Bisaccia, and I don't even want to frame it as lack of success because the team has definitely improved. But the way people frame it as like Bisaccia hasn't kept his worth around here, most of the shortfallings on the special teams are from the actual specialists, right? It's from kicking, punting, holding, when we had like Bajorquez and stuff like that, right? We haven't had a good punt returner under Bisaccia.
Not under Bisaccia. I thought this was Tyler Irvin slander for a moment, but you're right.
No. Kick returner. We've had a good kick returner, but he's fumbled in some big games, right? But the coverage units, the protection units, those have been good, and that's part of the roster construction part of it. And I don't think you want to, rock that boat. That part seems to be working. It's sorry that the past 2 years you've been too cap strapped to really go after a veteran kicker, and but I don't really hold that against Passat. Like, it's math. It's math. Like, we didn't have the money for a kicker. We didn't get a good kicker. Like, I don't think that really falls onto his lap.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how the teams do this year, and just if they can get a couple guys that can maybe help them, some of those coverage units, and certainly hopefully having a full year of Brandon McManus helps there as well. I'm going to go through some of these lightning round. Could Bullard potentially beat Williams out in camp, or is Williams entrenched based on the on-field performance last season? I think Williams is a starter, but nothing's, I don't think, completely off the table. And if Williams would struggle and Bullard would look great, I think they would have that conversation. But I think Williams is definitely going to be the leader in the clubhouse to begin with. What's good, Andy? Will Belton be back at practice, or will Belton be at practice tomorrow? He should. I don't know any reason why he would not be there, so he should absolutely be there, and definitely keep you posted if I get any glimpse. Not sure how much offensive lineman, like talent we're going to be able to glean tomorrow at practice, but if there's anything to report, I certainly will. Does the fact that Rasul played so poorly last year that he remains unsigned show that Gute made the right call of trading him in 2023? Do you have a quick response to this one, Justis? Doesn't hurt.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of that situation again. No, I mean, I think it made sense to move on from him at that point. right? We didn't think that Jaire was going to get banged up like this 2 years in a row. The Packers at the trade deadline in 23 weren't doing great.
They're like 2 and
right?
5. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, it seems like
It
he
made
made the
sense
right
at the
call. I mean,
time.
Russell had 1 year left, or I guess a year and a half left in him, when he left Green Bay. But then last season, not good.
At the
Not good
trade at the trade deadline, he did not fit the window that Green Bay was operating in. They were 2 and 5. They weren't even sure on
Right.
Jordan yet. And there was the odds of winning a Super Bowl. Heck, even things from that point forward went about as well as they could, and they still won 1 playoff game in those 2 seasons. So the Super Bowl window was not open during the time where Rasul Douglas's contract was in effect. They were able to save money by getting off of him, pick up a 3rd-round pick, even if they give up, a 5th-round pick in return there. And I know it's just Tyron Hopper in hindsight, but yeah, I think Rasul in hindsight would have helped in that playoff run, maybe against San Francisco or whatever. But
Yeah, sure.
Outside of that, I think at the time, without the benefit of hindsight, it made sense. And I definitely defended it at the time and still understand what they were thinking now. Does Jaire have to take the pay cut to come back, or can he decline? He can decline, but Green Bay then also can say, we're cutting you. There's no way he's back on the contract as is.
No, there's no way. And again, that's been the headache the whole time. You figured it out, Daryl. You figured it out.
Can he still then participate in off-season activities? He can show up, but Green Bay's not going to have him participate because they can't risk him getting hurt. If you could dispense any 5 liquids to come out of your fingers on one hand, what would they be? I've done this before, but I think one of them has to be the blood type that everyone can live off of, right?
There we go.
That you can be a donor for everyone. I think the other one's got to be just some sort of oil, oil, right? You could use an endless supply of oil. I think that'd probably be good. Water is probably one. I'm definitely taking Mountain Dew because I'm selfish, and one of them.
One for yourself.
There's got to be something else that's liquid that is worth a ton of money, that I'm just not thinking of.
Gold.
Yeah, liquid gold. Yeah, liquid gold, I guess. So, all right, there you go. Those are my 5.
That works for me.
If Rebovich was so bad, why did Hafley keep him, promote him when he took over? Very odd. Matt LaFleur must have really said great things about him prior to the season. My guess is that was probably a LaFleur decision and maybe not a Hafley decision, but tough to say for sure. I don't know. Without having all 22 of those decisions, it's tough to know 100% what the thinking was there.
Not talking about that specifically, but just a reminder to everyone. Office politics exist everywhere. Right? And how you shake up an office, how many people get let go, all that stuff when the decision makers change over and things like that. I think Matt, from a coaching staff perspective, wants to just keep things status quo for the most part and have guys entrenched and not shake things up too much. And I think that helps with the Packers mantra of just not really wanting to pay coaching buyouts and then paying big money to add assistant coaches.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. Who do I think gets the green dot on defense? I'll go with Quay. Has there ever been a practice squad player more overhyped by Packers fans than Kalen King? Probably. I don't know who off the top of my head, but there's probably been somebody. But yes, there's a lot of love for Kalen King out there, which let's see what he can do. Maybe he gets that spot. Maybe he makes the most of it. We'll see. A lot of talk about what Jordan needs to do to take the next step is to learn to check it down or scramble when there's nothing there. I do think he needs to scramble more. I do think a lot of the reason he didn't scramble last year because he was never healthy this past year. So I think that was a piece of it, but I do think he needs to scramble a bit more. But also, I'd rather have it this way where you want to ask him to scramble more rather than somebody who's just taking off all the time and not keeping his eyes down the field. I think this is a better way to play quarterback if you can keep your eyes down the field and find completions. But I do think he does need to scramble on a few more occasions this year.
My big worry is just how quick he is. Because it takes him a while to get going.
It does.
So I know on paper you might look at his 40 time and stuff like that and be like, oh, this guy can move around, but it takes him a while because he's a long guy, and once he gets in the open field, you can kind of see that speed because he's a long strider and stuff like that. But just in terms of his, I mean, you don't want to call it get off, right? But just his ability to get going. It's not.
There's no
NFL
first step
average.
explosion there. There's no first step acceleration or explosion. It's oh, wow, look at that. It doesn't jump off the tape. But yeah, if he gets in the open field, he can get going pretty well. But yeah, I'm with you. I just think there needs to be a couple different times where he can kind of take off, get that yardage when need be. But I would much rather, again, have it this way than the other way around. If you could pick any one player of the past to best help us get to a Super Bowl, who would it be? I answer this quite a bit, but I'll still take prime Aaron Rodgers. This is no disrespect to Jordan Love, but like prime Aaron Rodgers is to me still one of the best quarterbacks to ever do it. And if I can add that any season, I've got a chance at the Super Bowl every single year. So I'll take prime Aaron.
Give me Reggie.
That's a good one too. Reggie, the cheat would be the cheat code answer. Fair enough. Please discuss Covington. All I know is that it was Pat's defensive coordinator for one season. Has there ever been a coach brought in with more expectations and hype? Maybe Clements when Rodgers brought him back for Love. Again, this is always tough. Like even like what I don't know how I'm supposed to define Luke Butkus or what like Adam Stenavich does on a day-to-day basis, much less what like DeMarcus Covington did in his time in New England. Like, unless you're there, like knowing exactly what they're doing, saying, emphasizing all those sorts of things. I can pretend to know a lot of things. Those are ones that are just really, really difficult to know. It seems like they have a lot of really good things to say about him. It seems like he is a smart, well-spoken individual. Obviously, having defensive coordinator experience means that he's done well in his past jobs to get promoted to that level. There's excitement there, but as to whether or not he can bring anything special, I don't know. I don't know how to answer that. If you have a better way, Justis, I'm all ears.
No, I mean, I've asked some people in the league and stuff, and they're just like, yeah, he's good. I mean, you don't get really in-depth answers because, again, they're not really working with them day-to-day for the most part. I will say I think it was really interesting when they talked about the defensive front and why they liked Covington, and they mentioned the versatility and the fact that he's coached all these different fronts and stuff before. I do wonder if we're going to get, a little bit more flexible in the box on defense this year.
I don't know if you caught this. I went back after just recently because during the draft, everything is so chaotic. I finally got to go back and listen to the press conferences from Matt and Gute and all the scouts and things like that. Matt made some reference in there that caught my attention after that we had discussed this as well. And there was another comment that he made about different fronts or something like that as well that I should have wrote it down, but it definitely caught my attention again after thinking about Colin Oliver, the on-ball linebacker, talking about, then Covington, what he can bring to the table. But there was definitely another one in there too that was like veiled of like, oh, that's another interesting one where they're kind of making reference of different fronts. So it definitely seemed like there might be some smoke and some fire there. Apparently today per Matt Schneidman, 23 does really want to be there. So again, tough to say exactly what's going on and what's going to end up happening. But the report today is that Jaire does want to be in Green Bay. So the Packers leaked the offer to CYA with the fans when they cut him. CYA. What am I missing, Justis?
I was hoping you were going to tell me. Let me Google
Packers
it.
leaked this offer to CYA.
See ya offer.
See ya offer. Michael, maybe just clarify if you have a second there. Next year, you have to shed big contracts. This is the last year of the current window and roster.
Yep.
To an extent.
Or credit card.
Or credit card. I still think they're going to be able, they can't keep everybody. I think that's very clear. There's going to be changeover. But I do think, like, for example, if Rasheed Walker just goes out and has a unbelievable year at left tackle and looks legit, like they can find ways to keep Zach Tom and Rasheed Walker if they want to do it. If Quay Walker goes out and plays like one of the top linebackers, they can keep Quay Walker. Like they will have opportunities to keep who they want to keep, but a lot of that's going to be dependent upon how they play this year and which guys they want to keep of the guys who are potential free agents. And then you get into Elton conversations, Kenny conversations, those sort of things as well, which will also be very interesting. Which rookie from the last year do you think will make, well, we talked about that. If you were told the Packer excluding McKinney would be a finalist for Defensive Player of the Year, who would be your guess? Coop?
Quay?
Okay. I'm going Cooper.
Oh, no, Cooper. Sorry.
Yeah.
I was just thinking linebacker because I was just thinking about how those awards kind of work out. Like it's usually not going to a cornerback or anything like that. I know, who was it? Like Pat Surtain either got it or got close a couple years ago, but usually it's going to safeties and linebackers. Don't know why Quay jumped in before Cooper. Sorry for the heart attacks that I caused all across the state of Wisconsin.
I'll say, if you want to tell me Quay's going to have a Defensive Player of the Year.
Let's do it.
I'll be signing the hell up. I'm going to go Cooper as well. We talked about that. Do you think the Clifford era might be over? Yes. LVN physically has everything he needs to dominate. What do you think has been the biggest issue preventing him from being dominant or even consistent? Just technical skills. Like he just has to get better at the position, learn more, just expand.
He doesn't know how to pass rush right now. He's been a very good run defender because he has that strength, that length, that athleticism, but he just doesn't know pass rush moves. He doesn't know how to get skinny. He doesn't know how to bend. And he's got to be able to do that if he's not going to be one of these 240-pound little quick guys, right? So hopefully, cover your ass.
So the Packers
Google lied to me.
Cover your ass with the fans when they cut him. I don't know, maybe.
No,
nothing surprises me at this point. With
is anyone? Yeah, I don't think anyone's under a different impression of this situation than what reality is. And the reality is the Packers don't think he's worth 17.5. Jaire wants to make somewhere in the ballpark of that, if nothing else, with the restructure offer. So I don't think they have to cover their ass at all. I mean, I think kind of everyone's on the same page right now, other than the people who are only seeing things as, 1 year seasons, and they're just like, how does releasing Jaire make the team better this year? It's like,
there's that.
Not supposed to make
there's still a lot of Jaire fans out there too that just want Jaire back, like almost no matter what. So I have definitely seen a subset of that as well. All right, we got a couple other ones really quick. The Dream Team from Mosqueda, Minnesotan. Alex says, I don't live in Wisconsin, so I was just curious how golf package games work. Gold package games work. Which weeks the gold package is given are picked. Second and fifth home games are the gold package, and then it's like second, fifth, and eighth or something like that. If it's or second, fifth, and seventh, I don't know. I forget what the last one is. If there's that extra home game, then I think it kind of goes back and forth, like every 4 years or I don't know. It doesn't matter, but second and fifth in most seasons is what the gold package gets. And then last but not least, Carlo Delgado with the super chat says, Andy, what is it going to take for you to go live and shotgun a beer? I've never shotgunned a beer in my life, Carla. So doing it the very first time, I'm going to have to practice a little bit before I do it. And I don't know if I want to make a mess in the office. We're going to have to do that live somehow else. But like I've said before, I'm definitely going to do a drunk Packers live show one time where I'm just going to get blasted here and answer all of your questions throughout of it. So Justis, if you'd like to join, you are more than welcome.
Why not?
All right, there it is. All right, guys. Justis, thank you so much for hopping on. I appreciate you a ton. Appreciate everyone with all the great questions today. Thank you so much for being members. Justis, can you shotgun a beer?
Yeah, I've done it. Yep.
All right. I've not. It's never been something that I have been, tempted to do. So see, the issue is in college I didn't drink beer. I was a shots and liquor guy. I did not like beer in college. So I kind of lost out.
I think you kind of like missed the meaning of college then.
Yeah, no, I was still definitely, don't get me wrong. I had my nights, but they were more liquor and mixed drinks and shot related than beer related. So I missed out on my shotgunning beer sort of prime, unfortunately, but we'll see if we can make it happen. Justis, thank you again. Follow him on social media at JUMOSQ, and of course, acmepackingcompany.com. You can find me at Andy Herman NFL, but you know that already. Thanks so much for being here. We'll see you guys soon, but until next time, and as always, go Pack Go. Thank you, sir. Sorry.